Right now, beneath your front lawn, there is basically a brutal microscopic turf war happening. And if you live in North Carolina at the end of August, well, your grass is losing.
Oh, losing badly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Usually, when we talk about a home improvement project, there's this comforting expectation of instant, visible progress.
Yeah.
I mean, you put a roller of fresh paint to the drywall, the color changes immediately, and you step back to admire your work. You are in total control.
Right. It is a very satisfying linear process. You put in the physical labor and you get the immediate aesthetic reward. Boom, done.
Boom, exactly. But then you step outside your front door and look at your yard,
Yeah.
and suddenly that instant gratification model is completely shattered.
Right.
We're looking at a landscape that isn't just a static fixture, like a patio or a driveway. It's a wildly active biological battleground.
Mhm.
And treating a lawn like a quick coat of paint is where, it's where most homeowners get it entirely wrong.
Which is exactly why today's mission is so crucial. We're doing a deep dive into a comprehensive guide on what to expect after aeration and overseeding, specifically focusing on tall fescue lawns in North Carolina.
Yeah, we're really going to decode the entire biological timeline for you today.
Exactly. The goal here is to move way past that superficial desire for just a green yard and actually understand how turf heals, how it adapts, and how it fortifies itself.
Because the source material we're looking at reveals that true lawn care is a lot less like painting a wall, and it's a lot more like managing a long-term investment portfolio.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right, you're making deposits now for payouts that happen months down the line.
Yeah, and we are going to explore not just what happens to the soil and the seed, but the actual biological mechanics behind it, the why and the how. Because if you don't understand the mechanisms driving the ecosystem right outside your front door, you will inevitably end up fighting the biology instead of helping it.
Totally. So before we can even talk about how to fix the lawn, we have to look at why it seems to inevitably fail every single summer. I mean, it's like clockwork.
Every August.
Every August, the yard looks like a patchy, brown, just exhausted mess. And to understand why that happens, we really have to look at the fundamental biological limitations of the grass itself. Because the star of our show here is tall fescue.
Yeah, and the most critical thing to know about tall fescue is its genetic programming. It is a cool season grass.
Okay, so it likes it chilly.
Biologically, yeah, it is built to thrive when temperatures are mild, specifically in the spring and the fall. It basically wants 60 to 75-degree days.
Which makes a North Carolina summer its absolute worst nightmare.
Oh, it's awful for it.
I mean, you're dealing with brutal 95-degree heat, long periods of drought followed suddenly by torrential, heavy rainfall, high humidity that breeds disease.
Oh, the disease pressure is wild.
Yeah, and of course that famously compacted North Carolina red clay soil. It's essentially like baking the grass on top of a hot brick.
It is an incredibly hostile environment. And, let's look closer at that red clay, actually, because it's a huge part of the problem.
Yeah, lay it on me.
So if you think of sandy soil, it's like a jar of marbles.
Mm.
Water and air just flow right through the gaps. But clay soil is completely different. Microscopically, clay particles are flat. They're like tiny paper plates.
Okay, paper plates.
Right, and over time, with heavy rain and foot traffic, those microscopic plates just stack tightly together. They compress so densely that they act almost like concrete.
Wow.
Yeah, so water runs right off the surface, and the roots literally suffocate. They can't breathe.
So it's basically concrete. And the real vulnerability of tall fescue isn't just the compacted soil or the heat, right?
Mhm.
It's the physical way the plant actually grows.
Yes, exactly.
Because botanists call tall fescue a bunch-type grass, which is completely different from the warm season grasses people might be familiar with further south, like Bermuda or zoysia.
Right, those warm season varieties have runners, which are also known as stolons and rhizomes. They aggressively spread out, almost vine-like. They just creep across the ground to naturally fill in bare patches.
Oh, I see.
So if a patch of Bermuda dies, the surrounding grass will eventually just march over and reclaim the territory. It heals itself.
But bunch-type grasses do not do that. They grow in distinct individual clumps. I like to think of it like a crowded elevator.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. If someone gets off the elevator, the remaining people don't just magically expand their bodies to fill the empty space.
That would be terrifying.
It would be. But yeah, there's just an empty spot now. If you want the elevator full again, you need a new person to step in. And in the case of your lawn, when the summer heat takes out a clump of fescue, it leaves a permanent bare spot.
Just a completely barren patch.
Exactly. And without human intervention, Without you physically introducing new seed to that exact bare spot, it will simply remain bare, or it'll become a very comfortable home for weeds.
Which nobody wants.
No. But wait, let me push back on this for a second. If North Carolina summers are so incredibly hostile to tall fescue, and the soil suffocates it, and it can't even heal itself when it gets damaged, why are we even trying to grow a cool season grass there in the first place?
That is a very fair question.
I mean, it seems like we are just setting ourselves up for an agonizing failure every single year.
The answer basically lies in the region's specific climate zone. So North Carolina, particularly areas like the Piedmont and Charlotte, sits in what agronomists call the transition zone.
The transition zone. Okay.
Yeah, the summers are brutally hot, yes, but the winters get genuinely cold. So if you plant those aggressive warm season grasses we just mentioned, the winter frost will force them into complete dormancy.
Oh, I see.
Your lawn will basically turn tan and look completely dead from November all the way until April.
And nobody wants a brown yard for half the year.
Exactly. NC State Extension recommends early fall, specifically around September in the Piedmont region, as the critical window for tall fescue, because the transition climate demands a grass that can actually survive the winter frost while still looking green and vibrant during the colder months.
So it is a calculated trade-off.
Precisely. You accept the summer struggle for winter beauty.
Okay, so we are essentially backed into a corner here. If fescue cannot naturally heal its own bare patches, and we still want a lawn that stays green in the winter, human intervention isn't just an option. It's an absolute necessity.
You have to step in.
We basically have to violently break the surface of the earth to fix the problem. Which leads us to the physical mechanics of the intervention itself, which is core aeration and overseeding.
Right, and this is the major turning point for the lawn's entire year. Core aeration is the physical process of running a heavy machine over the yard that pulls small plugs or cores of soil completely out of the ground.
Like little cylinders of dirt.
Exactly. You are literally punching thousands of holes into the turf, maybe 2 to 3 inches deep.
Which, when you watch it happen, I mean, it sounds and looks incredibly violent for a living plant.
It is a massive mechanical disturbance, for sure, but it's a biologically essential one. Why? Well, going back to that compacted red clay with the flat microscopic plates we talked about, by pulling those physical cores out, you are breaking up the compaction. You are creating literal physical pathways.
Oh, so the concrete is broken.
Yes. Suddenly, oxygen, water, and essential gases can finally bypass that concrete-like surface and actually reach the root system. NC State specifically flags this as a mandatory annual practice for heavy traffic or clay-heavy lawns.
And once you've punched all these holes in the ground, you followed up immediately with overseeding, meaning you are dropping new seed directly into this freshly opened soil.
And precision is incredibly important during this step. The guidelines stress incorporating the seed into approximately the top 1/8 inch of the soil.
Really? Just an eighth of an inch?
Just an eighth. You need direct, physical, seed-to-soil contact for germination to occur. If a seed just falls and sits on top of old dead grass thatch or on a hard piece of clay, it'll just dry out and die. It needs the soil to insulate it and provide moisture.
The source material also emphasizes using a blend of different tall fescue cultivars, too, rather than just buying one single genetic strain.
Yes, that's crucial.
And I look at this like diversifying a stock portfolio. You don't put your entire life savings into one single company, right? Because if that company crashes, you lose everything.
Exactly.
So by using a blend of 3 or 4 different fescue cultivars, you build a broad genetic base. If a specific fungal disease rolls through, or a hyper-specific kind of drought hits, maybe cultivar A struggles, but cultivar B and C have genetic resistances that allow them to survive.
Yeah.
It basically builds systemic resilience.
Yeah, that is biological risk management at its finest.
But okay, here is where I have a major aesthetic issue.
Oh.
Well, immediately after this highly calculated, biologically necessary process happens, the lawn looks absolutely terrible.
Oh, it really does.
It looks like a flock of very sick geese just tore up the yard and left thousands of dirt clods everywhere. My impulse is to grab a rake and clean all those plugs up. Why on earth do we leave those messy soil plugs just sitting all over the grass?
I know, it definitely looks like a mess, but those messy cores are the secret to the whole process.
Really?
Yeah, this is where you have to trust the unseen biology. Those little dirt clods are packed with billions of beneficial bacteria and microbes.
Okay.
As the plugs sit on the surface, they dry out. And then when it rains or when you run the irrigation, they slowly disintegrate. That process acts like a microscopic digestion engine, breaking down the dead organic matter on the surface and naturally returning vital microbe-rich soil back into the turf canopy.
Oh, so it's basically natural composting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it lightly covers the new seeds, giving them that crucial seed-to-soil contact we just talked about. If you
Ah,
rake those plugs up, you are literally throwing away your own nutrient-rich topsoil.
wow. So it's a short-term aesthetic nightmare for a massive long-term biological benefit,
Pres-
which transitions us perfectly to the next phase, which is the patience game. Because after you aerate and seed, the absolute biggest mistake homeowners make is standing on their front porch 3 days later, expecting to see a pristine golf course lawn and getting deeply frustrated when all they see is a muddy goose poop mess.
Yeah, and that frustration comes from how fundamentally people misunderstand the biology of seed germination.
How so?
Well, everyone wants a fast, vibrant green up. They want to see progress tomorrow. But fast green up is actually a trap. It is a false metric of success.
Okay, that sounds completely counterintuitive. Green grass is the entire stated goal of lawn care.
Right. It is the eventual goal, but it cannot be the immediate priority. In the short term, say the first week to 10 days, the absolute priority is keeping that seed bed consistently moist.
Okay,
The seed needs constant shallow moisture to just crack open and allow the tiny seedlings, which look almost like green peach fuzz, to simply appear.
just to get them out of the shell.
Exactly.
But then, as we move into the medium term, heading deeper into the fall and into the winter, the watering strategy has to completely shift. The visual changes up top might seem agonizingly slow, but the underground changes are massive.
Yeah, they really are.
Because the source material notes that as the seedlings develop, you stop watering a little bit every day and you start watering deeply, but much less frequently.
And the mechanics behind that watering shift are brilliant. Roots are fundamentally lazy.
Lazy.
Totally lazy. They will only grow as deep as they need to in order to find water. So if you constantly water the lawn shallowly every single day, the roots have no incentive to grow. They'll just stay right at the surface where the easy water is.
Oh, that makes sense.
But if you water deeply, putting down a really heavy soak and then wait several days before watering again, the top layer of soil dries out completely. The plant panics slightly, and it literally forces the roots to grow downward, plunging deeper into the earth to chase the moisture that's retreating below.
So you are actively training the roots to go deep by manipulating their water supply.
You are, and this ties directly into fighting disease, too.
Really?
Yeah. Let's look at a notorious lawn killer in North Carolina, brown patch fungus.
The worst.
Brown patch thrives in shallow, constantly damp surface soil. It needs that wet environment to spread its fungal threads. By watering deeply and infrequently, you allow the surface soil to completely dry out, effectively starving the fungus of the moisture it needs to survive on the surface, while your grass roots safely drink from the moisture stored deep underground.
It is so smart. And NC State points out another crucial detail here regarding patience. Using lower scientifically appropriate seeding rates might actually result in a lawn that greens up much slower in the fall.
Right.
Like it might look a little thin at first, but because the individual plants aren't crowded together and fiercely competing for nutrients, they develop much thicker, healthier root systems.
Yeah, crowded seedlings basically choke each other out. Giving them space creates deep roots, and those roots are exactly what the plant needs to survive the brutal conditions coming next year.
I think of it exactly like going to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first week you start working out, you don't look any different. You just feel broken, sore, and messy. You look in the mirror and think, this isn't working.
Right. You just want to quit.
Exactly.
Right.
But the real strength is building underneath. You are repairing muscle fibers and increasing bone density long before you ever actually look buff in the mirror. You're building the infrastructure.
You're building the underground infrastructure for survival. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
But once those vulnerable, tiny roots start establishing themselves, they have to be actively protected. This is where we get into the rigorous aftercare required and the harsh reality of what overseeding can and absolutely cannot fix.
Right, because the aftercare phase is where your investment is either protected or entirely lost.
Mm-hmm.
First, the guides are adamant that you cannot rush to mow. Now, those newly germinated seedlings are incredibly fragile. The roots haven't anchored into the soil yet. A heavy mower tire can easily rip them right out. And when you finally do mow, you must maintain a height of around 3.5 inches. You should never, ever cut it below 2.5 inches.
And the science backs that up completely. Think of the grass blades as the plant's solar panels.
Okay, solar panels.
If you cut the grass too short, you are chopping off its ability to photosynthesize. You are taking away its energy source before it has a chance to generate enough food to grow those deep roots we just spent so much time talking about. You are basically starving the plant.
Wow. And you also need to ensure the established fescue is getting about 1 inch of water per week, either from rain or irrigation. And you have to keep foot traffic to an absolute minimum. You essentially have to treat the yard like a sensitive nursery.
You really do.
But wait, so let me get this straight. I just spent an entire weekend wrestling a heavy machine to punch holes in my yard. I bought a premium, scientifically blended seed mix. I'm meticulously training the roots with deep watering. I've yelled at my kids and the dog to stay off the grass for a month.
Right, you've done all the work.
All the work. And I am still seeing crabgrass and broadleaf weeds popping up in the bare spots.
Unfortunately.
My immediate instinct is to run to the garage, grab a bottle of chemical weed killer, and just spray them.
Uh-huh.
But I'm reading here in the deep dive sources that I'm not allowed to do that.
I know it is incredibly frustrating, but you have to hold off. Most people view weed control purely as a chemical warfare problem. But the herbicides that kill broadleaf weeds will easily kill your highly vulnerable, newly germinated fescue seedlings.
Even the so-called safe ones.
Yes, because their cellular walls are just too thin to handle the chemical stress at that stage.
So I just have to sit there and watch the weeds grow.
For a short time, yes. You might have to manually pull the largest ones by hand. But the broader lesson from the agronomy guides is that the absolute best weed defense isn't a chemical spray in a plastic bottle. The best defense is the dense turf canopy we are actively trying to grow.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. If the grass is incredibly thick and it's maintained at that tall 3.5-inch height, it literally casts a shadow over the soil.
Exactly.
So a weed seed blowing in on the wind lands in the grass, but it can't find any open dirt to anchor into, and it can't get any sunlight to trigger germination. The thick grass itself is the physical armor.
Yes. A thick stand of mature fescue naturally starves weeds of light and space. But, we also have to be brutally honest about the limitations of this entire intervention.
What do you mean?
Well, aeration and overseeding are powerful biological tools, but they are not magic wands.
Right, the guides are very explicit about this. If you have underlying fundamental structural issues in your yard, throwing expensive new seed at the problem will not fix it.
Not at all.
For example, severe drainage problems. If you have a low spot in the yard where a puddle sits for 3 days after a rainstorm, well, fescue seed will simply drown and rot. Aerating the soil won't fix the physical grade of your yard.
Nope.
Or extreme shade from heavy tree cover. Grass needs sunlight. If you have soil fertility that is completely barren of nitrogen and phosphorus, seed just cannot survive.
Right. Using seed to fix a structural problem is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
That's a good way to put it.
If the environment is fundamentally unsuited for the plant, the new seedlings will die exactly like the old ones did. Proper lawn care requires diagnosing the root cause, like pruning trees for light or installing a French drain for water, not just constantly treating the symptoms with more seed.
So if the process is this labor-intensive and it has such strict physical limitations and it involves staring at goose poop dirt clods for weeks while angrily holding off on weed spray, why should you, the listener, even bother?
To truly understand the value, we have to zoom all the way out. We have to stop looking at the lawn week by week and look at the full 365-day life cycle.
The cycle of resilience.
Exactly. If we connect all these mechanisms to the bigger picture, successful lawn management requires a total mindset shift. You have to move away from looking for a quick cosmetic fix just to make the yard look nice for Halloween and start thinking about ongoing ecosystem management for the following summer.
The grueling work you do in September is actually the armor your lawn is going to wear next August.
That is the core takeaway. By the time spring rolls around, a successful fall overseeding means you have a dense, well-established stand of turf. You physically have more individual plants occupying the available growing space.
And when summer inevitably arrives with those 95-degree days and zero rain, that sheer density really matters.
It's everything.
Tall fescue actually does have decent drought and heat tolerance compared to some other cool season grasses like Kentucky bluegrass. But it cannot survive if it's starting the summer thin and weak. It needs a dense, firmly established starting line to survive the barrage in North Carolina heat, the baking clay, and the heavy foot traffic of summer barbecues.
Right. It relies entirely on safety and numbers and those deep, deep roots we train during the winter. And, this brings up a reality that many homeowners miss. Fall lawn care is not a one-and-done event you do once a decade.
Right.
It is an annual cycle. Every single summer will cause some damage. It is biologically unavoidable. But every single fall is your opportunity to repair that damage and rebuild the foundation. The stronger the lawn becomes this fall, the deeper the roots penetrate, the better positioned it will be when the brutal heat returns next year.
You aren't paying money and sweating on a Saturday to make your lawn look pretty this October. You are literally buying survival gear for your grass for next July. It is a continuous investment in biological resilience.
It is ecosystem management, pure and simple.
And that wraps up our mission for today's deep dive. We've taken you on a journey from staring at rock-hard, microscopic plates of compacted red clay to understanding the messy, violent biology of aeration plugs. We've decoded the crucial deep root growth fueled by winter watering strategies, and finally, how all of that unseen infrastructure translates to surviving the brutal heat of a southern summer.
It's quite the journey.
It really is. Having a great yard isn't about finding a magical chemical spray at the hardware store. It's about giving the biology the time, the space, and the structural support to do exactly what it has been programmed to do for millions of years.
So before we go, I want to leave you with this thought to mull over. What if we stopped thinking of our lawns as permanent static fixtures like a concrete patio or an asphalt driveway and started viewing them as slow-moving, living organisms? Organisms that take a massive, desperately needed deep breath every fall when we open up the soil and then essentially have to hold their breath all summer long as the heat bears down. How might that change the way you step out your front door and look at the ground tomorrow morning?
That is a really profound way to look at it. Next time you see those messy dirt clods scattered across the yard in September, you won't see a mess. You'll know you're just watching an ecosystem take a deep breath. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the biological world around you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Pain in the Grass podcast, sponsored by Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, Huntersville, your go-to name in turf care for homeowners and businesses seeking beauty, quality, and reliability, powered by family and fueled by passion. Until next time, make sure to take care of that pain in the grass.